Hi there. So, for the past week or so, my brother and I have been at each other's throats for this, that, and the other thing. And honestly, it inspired me to make this video. Um, because we were talking about art and apoliticism. Wow, how riveting, how engaging. If you have any idea or can engage with media at a deeper level, you probably already know that apolitical art is relatively oxymoronic, because you can't have art without politics. It's impossible. So, let's just jump right into things. I got a whole thing set up. All right. Let's go. Media illiteracy. I know. How riveting, how engaging. I got you a whole presentation. I know. I'm doing my best. I'm making the most out of what I know how to do. And I haven't done presentations since like 2022, so we're doing our best. Starting out with a banger, the myth of apolitical art. As you and I probably know, art can't be apolitical. That, not real. I said it just barely. Apolitical art, oxymoron. All art is usually, anyway, reactionary. There's always a reason to create, and a lot of the time, it's like one of like three things. It's like vent art, or like we'll get into it later. We're actually gonna get. I love critical art. I love dystopia. It's my favorite genre. What can I say? I like dystopia. I like optimistic dystopia the most. I like when a dystopia has a like an outcome that's like, oh, how wonderful, how lovely. Um maybe this horrific dystopian world actually has a positive future, perhaps. But apolitical art, not real. It's not real. Art inherently political. The belief that art is apolitical is genuinely a fundamental misunderstanding of what art is. All art is made as a response to the status quo. We all live in the status quo. We create to either criticize or escape or vent about the status quo. Just because something is made to be enjoyed does not mean that it's apolitical. Superman, that movie that just recently came out, cannot be apolitical, obviously, no matter how much Ben Shapiro wants to try to convince me that it is. No politics in Superman. Superman? The personification of the American dream isn't political? Okay, whatever. Moving on. There are three purposes, like I've said just now, just barely, that art is created, in this case, by the author. The reason why we talk about Americans having an 8th grade reading level is because while Americans can grasp themes and like main ideas of stories and whatnot, they actually can't fully comprehend the biases and thoughts and whatnot of the author writing it, or the reason the author's writing. Are the curtains really blue, or is the character feeling sad? They can probably give you an answer for that, but they probably wouldn't be able to give you the answer to why in the mind of the author is this character feeling sad, given all of the context that we have leading up to this point. How does that reflect on the author personally? That far is too far. which is what causes the disconnect between information that you read and the information origin. That's why it's so difficult for some people to recognize a source is inherently biased. Sorry, I'm like, I keep seeing the glint of the screen in my glasses. That's why fake frames exist. but I get migraines, so I want my blue light glasses, please. Even though I don't think there's actually scientific studies that prove that these actually prevent migraines. I think I'm just like under harsh lighting all the time. So whatever. Well, moving on. We're actually gonna talk about the content of the the slide. So authors write usually for one of three things: for escapism from their current status quo, to critique their current status quo, like the status quo is in the society they live in, their everyday, or to find reprieve from their status quo. Escape and reprieve are kind of, well, obviously the same thing, but reprieve in this case, I'm using more so to describe vent art, completely, entirely reactionary art that is of the spur of the moment almost. This would be like vent poetry, trauma art, stuff in that sphere. This isn't nearly as applicable to like literature, which this is very clearly mostly focused on, because that's the angle that I'm coming from predominantly. Which I do mention a couple of video games later, but let's continue. Let's continue, baby girl. Escapist art. This is art that people believe is the most apolitical. The art that they're most wrong about, because as you can see, I couldn't find a lot of examples of art that people think are generally apolitical. The conversation my brother and I were having my brother was like, why do we always have to talk about politics? Why don't we talk about something apolitical? Why don't we talk about Stardew Valley? Stardew Valley is a game about living in a small town that a corporation is essentially trying to monopolize in, where you, as a farmer, are basically given all of the power in this town for some reason, to decide whether or not they join the rest of the world in this capitalist global market, or continue to have a domestic economy that sustains itself on locally distributed goods. Stardew Valley is inherently political because Stardew Valley is inherently anti-capitalist. For some reason, people also think Star Wars, which is why it's here, right over there, is apolitical. I don't know why anyone thinks this. I don't know why I always hear people talk about it like it's just supposed to be, like, enjoyed as it is. Did somebody miss the memo where the main antagonist is an allegory for a certain mustached man? It's a revolution story. Yes, of course. Game of Thrones, my favorite apolitical revolution story. What do you mean? The Hobbit. The Hobbit. Another one that I've stuck right in here. Not apolitical. Sorry, it's not. You can't have a story whose main antagonist is a centralized tyrant, essentially, no matter how mythologized, and like have this level of like distrust, etc., throughout the entirety of the Lord of the Rings for said centralized power, and then be like, oh, but it's not political. Bro, he changed the way he depicted like dwarves, I think, because of anti-Semitism, and people were like, "Wow, you're you're so cool for being anti-Semitic." What? Number one, no. But number two, um, bro changed the depiction because it was anti-Semitic. um, or well, it could be interpreted as anti-Semitic. Another thing, that is another thing. The interpretation of readers. The interpretations of characters are heavily done by the readers. No matter what, I've heard from a lot of authors that there's like this amount of surprise when a book character or a character in general is perceived differently than how they were written to be read. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, so on and so forth. Like the Punisher. I'll get into characters like this later, but readers play a huge role in what characters are interpreted as and what they inevitably become, like goblins, which are wow, wow. I don't think anyone expected that to be a slippery slope to anti-Semitism. Also, what is with what was with readers and looking for reasons to be anti-Semitic? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I do know because of historical context. That's important to note. Once again, back to the status quo of writers talking about the time that they're from. That this is the value of fiction, is the snapshot into a status quo of a previous era. For some reason, people also think hip hop is apolitical when it is literally a reaction to oppression. I could probably rant way too long about like my love for the history of hip hop and the history of jazz, but it's not the point of this video. But these as genres exist as a response to oppression. You cannot take the politics out of the genre. A lot of music is like this, especially in the US. Especially music born in the US. Especially music very deeply tied to, like, Black communities in America. You cannot take the politics out of music. Music is strength. And the politics and the context that made this music what it is today is very important to know. And to even remotely comprehend hip hop or jazz or funk as like remotely apolitical is to like water down the wealth of history that went into creating them. I'm just saying. And then Superman, obviously, like I said, the personification of the American dream, freedom and hope. Like, come on. You can't make Superman apolitical when his entire existence hinges on the politics of the American dream. Frickin' media literacy, baby! Now we're going to critical art. The second form of art that I was talking about. My favorite form of art. I love political art. I love critical art. This is art that is designed and intended to be political commentary. I got brilliant examples here. I got brilliant examples. A lot of these you probably know. I would actually be surprised if you didn't know any of them. Maybe not Felidae. I would not be entirely unsurprised if you'd never heard of Felidae or the Plague Dogs. But because I think I've only met one person in my entire life who's also read Felidae. Fantastic book. Cat Detective. It's awesome. If you haven't, you should read it. If you haven't played Disco Elysium, you should play it. They're beautiful. 1984. Obviously, Thought Control. It's timely. It's timely. It's about freedom. I don't know why my camera's lagging like that, but I'm coping. I'm coping. The Giver. More thought control. More dictatorship analogies. I think that The Giver is way more of an optimistic dystopia than 1984 is. But hey, that's on me. That's on me. Fahrenheit 451, one of my favorite books. I love Bradbury with all of my heart. Frickin' censorship. It's about censorship. We all know that. That's why it was selling so well. During 2016, in the same way that 1984 was. Cyberpunk, another anti-capitalist game. Disco Elysium, another anti-capitalist game with more layers. I can't even go into it. If you played Mouthwashing, another anti-capitalist game. Foundation, anti-capitalist and anti-colonial. Pretty sick, pretty awesome. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? About humanity and empathy and what defines human. Fantastic, incredible. Plague Dogs. It's about animal experimentation. It's about having empathy and having a hope for freedom. Even if that freedom never comes, the hope for it. That's the point, man. Beladay, it's about eugenics. It's like straight up about how horrific eugenics is. And it's one of those things. You just gotta read it. It's like Mouse, same sort of coming out of the Holocaust sort of narrative. It's incredible. I don't want to go any deeper into them, but most critical art is dystopia. You're gonna see a lot of it in dystopia, because dystopia is a really good way to force people to look at society and issues that plague our society. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm about. All right, and Reprieve art. This is the vent art. It's the art that a lot of us create in our day-to-day lives, whether that be poetry or pottery, painting. Painting is like very common for vent art. So is drawing. If you have a little notebook that you just like doodle in throughout the day, this is Reprieve art to me. It doesn't necessarily have to be vent art, but it's your outlet. And it's your like relatively so-so. It's what you're like writing typically, or creating typically. Music. I think music is probably the most common form of vent art, because I think music, as a whole, is just so well built for communicating ideas and making commentaries. Reprieve art can be both escapist and critical, as well as just like sort of its own thing. Reprieve art is something more so made for the author and less so made for an audience. And that's really the difference in it to me. Reprieve art doesn't need to be fictionalized. It can be very candid. It's anecdotal. Yeah, it's the normal things we make. This is the part of the presentation that I didn't whip up like maybe an hour before recording this, so we're still going. We only have a couple more slides, so thanks. Hi. I had a small technical difficulty, but it's no biggie. It's no biggie. The value of fiction. Fiction gives us a snapshot into its author, right? Fiction as a whole. No character stands alone without communicating something about their creator, the zeitgeist of the time that they were created. this is just like something that we know to be true. I have a lot of Superman in here because I think Superman is a very fundamentally misunderstood character. He's very appealing to both sides of the political party, but he personifies the American dream, both sides of it. And if there's something that both sides of American politics can agree on, is that there exists some form of American dream. It just manifests differently depending on what side of the political spectrum you sit on. The American dream for a lot of people is freedom, right? But this concept of freedom changes for your politics. People on the left believe that freedom is like real autonomy. Empathy for other human beings sort of falls in this. You are free to exist comfortably and without prejudice in America. That's what the left wants to believe, or does believe. That's what I believe. I believe that all people in America should be free to exist without prejudice. Yes, thank you. But the right believes that personal property should be protected. I know that that's like a libertarian take as well, but they like have like a personal property is freedom, and choice is freedom. Choice is freedom, but when you go into like the shampoo aisle and there's like a million brands of shampoo, and then you like turn them all around, and then you find out that they're all owned by freaking Johnson and Johnson or something, that to conservatives, to the right, I mean, that illusion of freedom is still freedom. And to the left, that's not freedom, obviously, because you're just giving money to the one corporation that is like basically monopolizing. Not saying that J&J is monopolizing, but the practice of having so many subsidiaries and then selling that as choices is suspect at best, in my humble little guy opinion, as a 22-year-old woman living in America. And I don't know, they're full of sulfates and terrible for my hair, so I can complain about whatever I want. But Superman, this like idea of what is and isn't freedom is contentious. And Superman depicts freedom in general. He is like America's golden boy, and both political sides can stand with him, but for very different reasons. I think conservatives are more apt to disagree with some of the actions of Superman than the left is in general, especially when it comes to topics of discrimination or international politics. Cough, cough, the most recent Superman movie. Cough, cough, Ben Shapiro's analysis of it. I should just make a video about that at some point. Because he's so insane. Like, it's not like insane to hear him go off about it in the way he does. It's just like, yeah, that would be Ben Shapiro's take after this movie got really popular. Of course it is. But moving on. Misunderstanding Theme. This is more specifically about character theme. While we associate theme with like the overarching plot, that's not like the only way theme exists. Theme can be applied exclusively to characters. Characters can have individual themes that exist in contention with their plot, their main setting. You like my selection of characters because they're characters I like. I think that two characters that are misunderstood in polar opposite ways are BoJack Horseman and Rick Sanchez. All right. I could probably rant for hours about the fundamental misunderstanding of Rick and Morty by everyone. I love Rick and Morty. I love Rick and Morty after season 3. I like Rick and Morty when Rick dedicates all of his time to becoming a better person, only to see, wow, my family is becoming more like the bad person I used to be, or I'm trying not to be. I did something irreversible to my family, and they are doing it unto me now. I'm being punished for my own actions, and I'm trying to grow and change and become more empathetic and care more about the world around me. And my family has become so much like how I was that I can't undo it. It's generational when it comes to Rick. BoJack, opposite problem. Well, actually, the same problem, opposite interpretation. A lot of people prefer Rick in his earlier seasons, obviously, when he didn't care, blah blah blah. When he was more pessimistically nihilistic. But BoJack is a guy who is trying to change at the beginning, and then when he does finally commit to genuinely changing, his past catches up to him. When people say that they're like BoJack Horseman, they are usually saying it in the way that they recognize that they're bad people and they cannot change it because they don't believe they can. I think that throughout the plot of BoJack Horseman, BoJack does change. BoJack changes as a person, fundamentally, by the end of the show. But he did so begrudgingly, and he did not genuinely want to change until all of the work that he put toward changing for extremely selfish reasons came undone. And that undoing of all of that selfish self-reflection, ironic, feels oxymoronic saying it. Him seeing that was what led him to genuinely change. It wasn't like everything he did before. He was changing disingenuously. He was changing for himself. Or like trying to change for himself. But not in the for himself as in his like health is better. He thought that it would change his position in the eyes of other people because he didn't like how people looked at him. I almost feel like I'm remembering the plot of BoJack Horseman wrong, but I haven't watched it in years, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt when it comes to BoJack. Whereas Rick and Morty, I watch pretty regularly. I got Reagan in here. I don't think Reagan is necessarily a misunderstood character, but she has all of the workings to be. Reagan is a character who is like very empathetic, but in a position where she has to be something else. She has to be a monster. She feels obligated to be. But she wants to make things better by working in a system that is permanently worse. But she has all of the makings for someone to really latch on to her like inflated sense of like self-worth or etc etc. But she's a bit of a hit or miss because she is a relatively humble character even in the context of the show, so I think it's probably easier to misinterpret Rand as a guy, or like you know, I don't know, one of her coworkers. She like narratively, I think that if the seasons continued, I would have enjoyed where it was going. I liked that we were watching Reagan set herself on the self-destructive path of sacrificing her happiness always for the sake of her dream, um, because obviously her dream is to essentially control the world, but to make it better. And we're seeing her go into this very hopefully and like very optimistically. But we can kind of all probably see from a mile away that it's not going to go well. And that she is a character doomed to fail because of her optimism. In a similar way, that Superman is a character doomed to fail in the eyes of society because of his optimism. Because in like a world where we are so like polarized against each other, a character like Superman is either he will always be the villain in one way, shape, or form, in like someone's eyes. And while his morals don't change and while his like convictions never change, someone will always make a villain of him. Cough, cough. This is actually like a huge point of contention between me and my brother whenever we argue, is that my thoughts and opinions, my convictions, they do not change. I will still hold the same amount of empathy as I did before for people I do not know. Blah, blah, blah. Not saying I'm like a saint. Obviously not. I'm just as fallible and human as everyone else. But I will not stray from my morals for a political reaction. I will hold true to my like moral compass no matter what, and my like decisions will not be swayed by some like rage inciting political rage bait. My opinions will be less swayed by political rage bait because that is unproductive ultimately. And if we vote based on vibes, then really what even will be society? Can we get a vibe check on Cuomo? Sorry. I'll have to put a negative vibes thing right here for Cuomo. But moving on. I don't even remember what the next slide is. Media literacy final boss. I'm actually pretty sure this is the last slide. But heaven forbid what people know what Rick and Morty is actually about, which is Rick changing as a person and then being forced to watch as his family descends into being the shitty person he used to be. And I don't know. Hopefully, I haven't seen the most recent season. I was following it since it was announced, but I still haven't watched it. I caught both trailers like on release. I still haven't seen it, but yeah, heaven forbid people actually know anything about Richard and Mortician. my one of my favorite shows. I love Rick and Morty. I think it's fantastic. But yeah, if someone tells, I guess TLDR, if someone tells you they like Rick and Morty season 1 through 3, and none of the rest of Rick and Morty, tell them to eat rocks or something. For legal reasons, that's a joke. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I'm done with my really long-winded rant. I don't know if you'll even remotely like the style of this. This is my version of shitposting, I think. So, yeah, let me know. I might have gone on some irrational rants at some points during this, but if that's the case, if I stopped making sense at all, leave a comment, leave a like, and if you want me to do more of this, you can subscribe, I guess. um I don't even know what this video format is. Let's play uh let's play slide presentation. I guess. But thanks. Thanks for watching again. And uh if you have any thoughts, any suggestions for stuff you want me to rant about, you can comment those below. But aside from that, uh ring bell, baby girl, maybe? I don't know. But yeah. This is pretty fun. I'm probably gonna keep doing these like relatively low effort shitpost video essays, I guess. Where I just kind of rant at you. It feels a little intimate, doesn't it? Pookie. But I don't know. So we know. I got plenty of thoughts and opinions I'd like to share. I got the the Daring Do light novels that I've been waiting to read. I think I'm already halfway through one of them. So I don't know. I can talk pony stuff. I love pony stuff. You want me to talk about the politics of My Little Pony? Because I can. Anyway, for the matriarchy, I guess. I don't know. I hope that this has been me rambling long enough for the card, the like cards to show up. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I got you. I got you. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. And thanks for hanging out and watching me shitpost, I guess. Is it really a shitpost? I don't think it is. But yeah, I don't even know what I'm gonna title this video, so bye! Bye guys! Bye! Bye for real! Bye! Bye!